Good morning to you, sir. Thank you
Thank
for your
you.
time. Now, you've been the JLP leader since 2011. This is your fourth general election in this role. The Jamaica Labour Party has never won a third consecutive term. How has it been different about seeking a third mandate and as opposed to the first or the second?
Well, that's a very good question, I must say, and thank you, Kadeen, and to the entire Jamaica and all the press corps that is here. I wish everyone victory today. Jamaica should win at the end of the process. And of course, the Jamaica Labour Party has performed as a government in the last two terms over and above other governments since independence in Jamaica. On almost all metrics, the Jamaica Labour Party has outperformed. There has never been a government to have cut crime in half, cut the national debt in half, cut poverty in half, presented 10 budgets with no net new taxes, to have actually given back taxes to the people, to have cut taxes, and to have taken on some of the previously thought to be intractable or impossible problems and address them in substantial ways. In other words, our government has transformed the fundamentals of Jamaica. But let's look at it from another perspective. There's never been a government in independent Jamaica that has had to deal with a pandemic. And we dealt with the pandemic, coming out of it very rapidly, without increasing our debt, without cutting one job in the public sector or cutting any pay in the public sector, and immediately after increasing public sector wages by the largest increase ever in the history of Jamaica. But more than that, we were hit by a Category 5 hurricane, and then we had 8 solid weeks of rains and tropical storms which damaged our infrastructure, and we were able to recover quickly from that. So on all metrics of performance, the Jamaica Labour Party has done well. No one contests whether or not the Jamaica Labour Party has performed. Even the most jaded and biased voter has to concede this point. Now, I am not saying that we're a perfect government, but you can't compare us to perfection. You have to compare us to what our competitors have done and what others have done in the past. And if you compare us on that basis, which is the fair basis, we have certainly outperformed. However, elections are not always about the logic of performance. You're not always graded based on how you perform. Now, there's a danger in that, because if it is that political parties can win without performing, then what is the incentive to actually deliver on the promises that they make? And so, yes, elections are also about the future, and it is about, therefore, a promise. So in this election, the electorate is faced with a different set of circumstances which they have not had since our independence. In other words, this is the first election where the electorate has to contemplate in their decision-making process the performance of the government.
So are you feeling more confident this time around?
So which is why we have presented, uncontested, our booklet of 250 solid achievements. Every journalist, everyone who looks at it, okay, we can't contest this. So we are now in the phase of the campaign, which is about what are the promises, what the future is going to look like. Now, I will say this. Promises can't be delivered by people who have not performed. To take a promise from someone who has not delivered or has a track record of not delivering, you're gambling. You have a far greater possibility and probability of the fulfillment of promises by persons who perform. Now, I'll say one thing, which is also different, and why I have great confidence. The challenge for Jamaica over the last 50 years has been to give development to the people without borrowing, without raising taxes, without running deficits. Over the last 50 years, Jamaica's development has been literally funded by borrowing or by increasing the tax burden. We did this to a point where the economy almost collapsed. And in 2009, the Bruce Golding-led administration was at the helm when we faced the deepest, darkest moment of going off that cliff. And we took the decision to end the high interest rate policy and to introduce fiscal discipline. We worked with the IMF to create a kind of social cooperation around this. And give the PNP credit, they continued this. And today, we have a solid fiscal economy because we also took it over and deepened it. So what Jamaica can claim, entire Jamaica, is that we now have fiscal rules and good management of the economy. This is what, as a nation, we have fought for. This was tested in this election. In other words, the very people who say they claim fiscal responsibility are the very people who came to the public with promises that were fiscally irresponsible. And so this election is a test as to whether or not the public has moved away from promises that are fiscally dangerous, meaning promises that will take you back to either increasing debt or increasing taxes or tanking the economy. And so a lot of what was promised by the PNP flew directly in the face of what they claim to be the father of, which we know they're not the father. The DNA test was done and they're not the father of that. So, but they had a part in the upbringing of the child, so to speak. And therefore, for me, I found it a little bit hypocritical and not credible that in order to get political power, they would make promises that are fiscally irresponsible. So this election is about, yes, whether or not the electorate has evolved to a level where they understand the risks to the economy by accepting promises that are fiscally irresponsible. And ultimately, it is about whether or not the electorate will reward performance as a guarantee for the delivery of future commitments. So the election comes down to two things: performance, promise. And you have to choose. Indicated, but we didn't give details. Because as I tell you, I'm a chess player. So we knew that they were coming with this because they have been trying to take our 2016 playbook. They don't understand the playbook. And I think they overplayed their hands. But one of the reasons why I did it, however, and I'm glad you asked the question, because the PNP claims to be a socialist party. And socialist parties are more about redistribution rather than creation. So they take what is in the society and they take it from one set and they give it to other. Normally, socialist societies take from the rich and give to the poor. There are two instances which I think the public should look at very carefully. The high interest rate policy, which resulted in FinSac, which resulted in taking wealth from the poor and giving it to the rich, for which the people who are trying to contest for this election now were beneficiaries. So that's one instance where a conscientious clergyman who was a member of their political party had to speak his mind when he said that that policy was the greatest transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich. The promise of giving 114,000 Jamaicans earning more than $1.8 million, $75 billion in tax relief, is taking from the people who earn minimum wage and giving it to people who earn much higher than minimum wage. And then to have the audacity to say this is a move to build the middle class. You can't build a middle class like that. You build the middle class out of the working class, meaning you support the working class. You give them the tools to climb the economic ladder, such as consistently increasing their minimum wage so that they can get access to better income, better amenities, and better education. And that is the core of building the middle class. So our policy is about supporting the working class so that they can send their children to school, so that they can get better housing, so that they can get better health care. They can grow out of the working class. And that's what you build, right? And so to me, this policy that the PMP put in place was not just fiscally responsible, but immoral.
Some economists have said, though, Dr. Holness, that it's not sustainable and it will affect the middle class adversely,
No.
as well as it cannot be funded.
So, Katie, what cannot be funded?
The $32,000 increase.
Oh, God, Katie. Hold on to my hands a little bit and just walk with me down the road. Imagine today was 2016. And I said to you, Katie, I'm going to almost triple the minimum wage. What would you say? You wouldn't believe it. It would be impractical if you believe it. The minimum wage then was $6,000. Today, the minimum wage is $16,000. Has the middle class declined? Absolutely not. Has there been any loss in job? No. We moved from 7.2% unemployment to 3.3% unemployment. In fact, in 2016, we were 13% unemployment. Where now unemployment has grown. Listen, there are a lot of people who talk, but have very limited understanding of where we are in the economy. Even if the government did not increase the minimum wage, firms are now at the point where they have to contemplate paying people higher in order to attract more labor into the labor force. You see, the PMP doesn't understand this, and those who are talking, they don't understand where the economy is. There are 50,000 unemployed Jamaicans. 50,000. It might sound like a lot, but that's just 3% of the labor force. And why are these people unemployed? They're unemployed because they don't have skills. So there are jobs, but the people there don't have skills. And that's why we're working very hard to upskill and reskill and skill this 50,000 to bring them into the labor force. But you will eliminate that very quickly. And then you're going to get to a point where your economy needs to expand. Where is the labor going to come from? And once that market force starts to happen, what is going to happen to wages? They're going to have to rise anyway. So what we're trying to do is to anticipate and to give people greater incentive in the work-leisure balance. Because a lot of people are saying, it doesn't make sense for me to pay a taxi fare, buy lunch money, and then I come home and I can't get anything. And so I decide not to offer myself to the labor force. But as you gradually increase the minimum wage, as we have done, we were able to bring in 85,000 Jamaicans into the labor force, right? And so this is a move that is going to increase the labor force, it's going to increase productivity, it's going to increase value. But let's be fair, man, it's morally correct. It's going to give the base of the society, right? It's going to give them access to a better quality of life. The middle class under our policy also gets a benefit with the gradual reduction in the rate of taxes and, of course, the fulfillment of the commitments we made to gradually increase the threshold. So everybody benefits, not to mention the pensioners. My God, you know, I through COVID, I have to say thanks to the pensioners. I think they were hardest hit because they had to stay home the longest. And I think they deserve the break, which is why we have said, if you're a pensioner 65 years and older and you're earning $6 million or less, you're getting income $6 million, you're paying no taxes. And I think that's fair. I think in 2007, 2011, he predicted in 2016, and he predicted in 2020. Come on. You know, I'm not going to discredit any poll. Let me say that. But I don't listen to Don Anderson's poll. I have done my own poll. And I have stayed away from saying what the outcome of the poll is. Because you see, you can use polls to influence opinions, which is what has been happening in Jamaica for a very long time. But ultimately, you end up in an echo chamber where you start to believe your own, what your own polls are telling you in terms of the influence it has on people. And you don't want that because, one, not just the echo chamber effect, but it reduces the urgency of your supporters. People get complacent. So we did not release. We did a poll, and let me give you the background of that. We did a poll a few weeks before the announcement of the elections. We polled 23 seats. We interviewed over 25,000 respondents. So not a little poll of 1,000 people here or 300 people there. And we polled the seats that have shown historically the ability to swing. And in 20 of those seats, we were significantly ahead. When we saw the blue dot polls, for us it wasn't any shocker, because that is what our polls also were telling us. We stand here on great conviction, with great humility. We are not bothered by the polls. We have done the work, and you can see that our campaign has been very strategic. We had a pre-campaign where we went around the country and we explained our policy. Then we entered the first phase of the actual campaign, where we explain our achievements and place those into context. And then we actually delivered a document of achievement, which is quite separate from a manifesto. And then in the third phase, we delivered the manifesto and we campaigned on what the future is going to look like. You will also notice that we never felt desperate to sink to the gutter. You have never heard me call on a platform the name of the leader of the opposition.
Prime Minister, if you win the third term in government, will this be your last at the helm of the country?
I believe in meritocracy. But I'm also human. And, while I was Prime Minister, there was something that I always wanted to do. Many things I always wanted to do. I mean, I like to teach, and I've always wanted to do my doctoral studies, and I want to write. And, I've been in politics now for almost 28 years. Yeah, so, there's other things that I'd love to be able to do. But for me, the greatest pleasure is serving the nation, serving my family.
Yes or no, Prime Minister?
It is, I always want to serve my family if they have me. That's what I'm built for. And I started at 18, but I came officially in politics in 25. So more than half my life has been dedicated to this. Yeah.
Prime Minister, you looked at the numbers when you came in. What is the voter turnout? What's your opinion?
Sorry, which numbers you're talking about?
By the gate, you were looking at the JLP's list.
Oh, no. That's just the voters list. That's just the list of yes.
What is the voter turnout looking like?
I couldn't tell you. This is my first interaction with a polling station, and I have not yet gotten any official update as to what the voter turnout is. But from what I've seen and what I've heard, I've been calling around. What I see here, that the lines seem robust. People are coming out. I suspect that many Jamaicans feel that the stakes are high and that they will come out. I think many Jamaicans, realize that they really can't gamble with the future of their country, and so you're gonna find many Jamaicans coming out to make sure that they protect the government, they protect the gains.
The campaign has been very rigorous, Prime Minister, and you've been to almost every parish, if not every parish constituency, the nook and cranny of Jamaica, across the length and breadth of Jamaica. Is there anything that you would have done differently, or that you wish had transpired differently along the campaign, as well as what are you most looking forward to after today?
So you mentioned, I've gone everywhere. Listen, I've been around this country maybe more than 10 times. I mean, there's scarcely a place that I have not visited. I've stopped there for a long time, but I've been there. So I know the country very well. And my campaigns are intense. When I come out and I go amongst the people, it's, I'm being pulled and stretched and hugged and kissed and lifted. This time I said, please don't lift me up this time. don't lift me up this time. But that's the kind of robustness that you experience when you get on the campaign. And you notice that I made sure to get fit for the campaign, and I did my 5Ks and got fit. So, I'm campaigning for the entire day. Sometimes I'm on stage at, 1 p.m., 1 a.m. And, Yeah, and the people are there. That is the most amazing thing, that the people are there. They're standing up. And the JLP crowd is a little bit different. I've spoken on many platforms. And what I'm noticing about the JLP supporters is that they are not there for the gimmicks. They are naturally critical, but they are there listening to see if you make sense. And it's something you can just look in the eyes and you see that they are listening and they are nodding. So they are not mindless followers.
So would you have done anything differently?
Right. So differently.
And what are you looking forward to after today?
It's hard to critique the campaign because it was a well executed campaign. I think nobody, when you look at our meetings and so forth, well executed. Let me think about that. I mean, there are some internal issues which I wouldn't bring, but internally, in terms of the structure of the, you can see weaknesses in terms of structure and so forth. But the outcome, despite any internal, and in an organization, you have.
When you're ready to
when I'm writing the book, those things will come up. And what am I looking forward to? I'm looking forward to returning as your Prime Minister, to continue the work that we have started, and to get on to some new things. The mandate, getting a new mandate is so important, because once you start to enter into the election campaign, the people who actually do execution, where you need them to be executing without concern or without hesitation, the election campaign puts you in a kind of flux, and the new mandate sends a clear signal, not just to the executive, but to the civil and public service. And that means we can push harder now to get things done.
Prime Minister, this campaign undecided. What to the 9th hour can't make up on that?
I think I'm your best choice. I think we have performed. And if you're undecided, it would mean that some amount of not just emotion, but logical thinking has entered into your mind, and you're trying to weigh and wrestle. It's a simple, in my opinion, it's a simple metric. Who can best deliver what they promise? And you have to look at who has actually delivered. And if you want fulfillment, you have to look at people who have fulfilled and people who have delivered. And so I think we are the best choice. And I think that we are the best choice for Jamaica. If you notice our campaign, it's Choose Jamaica. So to the undecided, I say to you, choose Jamaica.
See projection, Prime Minister.
This campaign trail has been clouded with thoughts of corruption. Do you think that will affect how some Jamaicans vote?
Without question. I mean, there are Jamaicans who will listen to the headline and not necessarily read the story. So that's something that we factor in. I think the challenge with corruption in Jamaica is that it has focused heavily on the name and shame, and using bureaucracy to try to prevent corruption. I think there's another model, which is a model that actually works. And I've said it before, I say it again. Efficient systems can't be corrupted. So if you're trying to deal with corruption, you have to make systems efficient. And to make systems efficient, you want quick delivery of results, you want systems that are integrated, you want transparency, and you want a fair process of adjudication. So we are looking to, as we have announced, our speed program and increasing the efficiency of our public bureaucracy. And I think that is where you're going to get the greatest gains against corruption.
Dr. Holness, you're here to support Fable Williams. How confident are you that she will retain the seat?
Fable has been a very good Minister of Finance, I must say. Fable has her own unique style, and people sometimes underestimate her. But if you talk about the strength of a woman, that's Fable. She's a strong person. She's not overbearing. She doesn't seek to come and dominate. She's very humble. But people tend to not realize, that Fable is a brilliant lady. Fable is a Harvard graduate. Fable, not that means, but what I'm saying is she's academically accomplished. And she was, before she entered politics, a successful businesswoman. And so she understands the field of finance very well, and she's been able to execute very well. As an MP, I'm sure she would have surprised many. And she continues to work. There are always complaints, always in every constituency, but I expect that Favour will come home and come home strongly as well. I think I've been very gracious.
Yes, very. Any seed, as you asked, any seed predictions?
No, I'm not. I gave you a. You could extrapolate from what I've said. We polled 23 seats, and we're heading 20, and these are the seats that we consider swing seats based upon the local government elections. So from that, you can figure out what the likely outcome of the election is going to be.
Very well, sir. Have a great day.
Blessings. Thank you all.